Attention! More than 60 Russian tanks were advancing like a steel serpent ready to crush the front. But within hours, that column was reduced to burning scrap and, even worse for Moscow, turned into reinforcements captured by Ukraine. Do you think Kiev did the right thing by turning the enemy's weapons into its own advantage? Subscribe if you believe it was a brilliant stroke of military ingenuity, or leave a comment if you think it was a risky move that could escalate the conflict to an unpredictable level. Stay tuned, because this story redefines how battles are fought in the 21st century. At 2:17 in hidden airfields around Kiev, the night shattered as Ukrainian long-range drones and Storm Shadow and HIMARS missiles crossed the Dnieper. This was no isolated strike. It was a multi-layered offensive to break through Russian defenses in Belgorod, the last shield before Moscow. The first ATACMS missiles blinded Russian radars, while Leopard and Challenger tanks surged forward at full speed. Their cannons destroyed command posts and artillery, followed by infantry opening breaches in the front. Russia tried to counter with T-72s and BMPs, but mines, javelins, and NLAWs halted their advance. By dawn, Belgorod was in flames, depots and railways reduced to rubble. The next target, Voronezh, 200 kilometers to the north. Ukrainian jets dropped JDAM bombs that incinerated massive oil depots. Russia retaliated with Caliber missiles, but Patriot defenses intercepted most mid-flight. On the M4 highway, FPV suicide drones struck Russian convoys, setting trucks and armored vehicles ablaze, turning the road into a corridor of destruction. With Belgorod paralyzed and Voronezh burning, Moscow was increasingly cut off. The Kremlin responded with submarines and frigates firing Kaliber and supersonic Onyx missiles. Yet Ukraine deployed air defenses, naval drones, and Neptune missiles to disrupt and sink Russian vessels in the Black Sea. The morning rose with smoke over the waters, proof that the war was no longer confined to land and air but was also raging at sea. Each Russian attempt to reassert dominance further weakened its lines, while Ukraine grew bolder. After the naval clash in the Black Sea, where Russian ships lay in ruins, the war shifted back to land. Forced to split its forces, Russia grew vulnerable just as Ukraine launched its next phase, the road to Moscow. At dawn, waves of explosive-laden drones crossed the border at low altitude, invisible to radar. Simultaneously, Storm Shadow missiles struck air bases near Tula, igniting hangars and grounding Russian squadrons. Ukrainian special forces, infiltrating overnight, blew up communication nodes, leaving commanders without orders or coordination. For critical minutes, Russia was blind. Drones and missiles struck unopposed. At 4:05, the plan finalized less than 20 minutes earlier came to life. From two approach vectors, one sweeping from the northeast and the other from the south, a pair of Bayraktar TB-2 strike drones glided silently through the pre-dawn darkness. High above the treetops, their infrared optics outlined the Russian formation below, pinpointing its critical nodes, command vehicles and fuel trucks. The TB-2s fired their first salvo, laser-guided munitions with surgical precision. The first blast tore apart a fuel tanker, sending a geyser of fire and smoke into the air. The second did the same to another fuel truck, its burning wreckage blocking half the road. For the third strike, a mobile command vehicle took a direct hit, its radio mast folding over itself like a collapsing tower. Almost simultaneously, a wave of loitering munitions, small, agile, nearly invisible against the dim horizon, descended on the convoy from the opposite flank. They dove straight into their targets, two more tankers and an auxiliary communications vehicle. In under 2 minutes, 4 fuel trucks and 1 key communications vehicle were flaming wrecks. The effect was immediate and devastating. Without fuel, the tanks couldn't advance far. Without communications, their coordination collapsed. Russian operators scrambled to restore contact, but the combined impact of burning equipment and fragmented signals left them in disarray. The battalion's advance ground to a halt. Dozens of tanks and APCS sat exposed in open fields, engines idling, crews nervously scanning for unseen threats. The once imposing column had become a stationary, vulnerable target, a steel serpent frozen in place. From Ukraine's perspective, This was exactly the plan. Phase 1 complete, momentum broken, command disrupted, fuel lines cut. The burning trucks still belched thick smoke as Russian commanders tried to salvage the situation. Realizing their armored column was stranded in open ground, they ordered self-propelled artillery forward to provide covering fire. Two Tu-19 Msta-S lumbered up from the rear, hoping to suppress Ukrainian positions before the ambush escalated. But Ukraine had anticipated this. From hidden positions nearly 6 kilometers away, a swarm of FPV strike drones swept across the fields. Guided by live video and piloted with pinpoint accuracy, they dove into the exposed artillery pieces. The first impact detonated a full ammo rack inside the lead howitzer, blasting its turret skyward in a fiery plume. Seconds later, the second Msta-S erupted in a fireball. Its crew never fired a single shot. With the supporting artillery neutralized, Ukraine launched Phase 2. Fast-moving light armored assault teams surged from opposite ends of the column with a clear mission: seal the escape routes. Within minutes, Ukrainian BTR-S and MRAPS blocked the northern and southern exits, trapping the Russians in a kill zone barely 900 meters wide. The caught crews tried to reposition, but the earlier drone strikes had left them disoriented and exposed. Ukrainian marksmen hidden in tree lines opened fire with anti-tank missiles and precision mortars. Each strike was deliberate, aimed at vehicles attempting to maneuver or rotate turrets toward the flanks. The effect was suffocating. Several tanks threw a track trying to retreat over uneven ground, immobilizing themselves. Others, fearing a direct hit, were abandoned by their crews, who fled on foot toward distant hedgerows. The once cohesive armored spearhead fractured into scattered pockets of resistance, each isolated and unable to coordinate. By the end of Phase 2, the convoy was no longer a threat. It was a collection of stranded, demoralized machines. For Ukraine, the kill zone was fully established, the stage set for the nighttime raid that would strip the Russians of both armor and will to fight. The steel serpent was cornered, its head about to be cut off. Night fell over the kill zone like a shroud. The last embers of burning vehicles cast a faint orange glow across the open fields. By then, the trapped battalion was isolated. No supporting artillery, no escape routes. That was when Ukrainian special operations units moved in for the decisive blow. Advancing in total darkness, operators crept in small teams, snaking through hedgerows and shallow ditches to stay hidden. Each carried compact RF jammers, tuned to blind the infrared camera systems mounted on Russian tanks and armored vehicles. Within seconds of activation, enemy sights and feeds went black, leaving gunners practically blind in the moonless night. Confusion spread rapidly through the stranded column. Tank crews stared into nothing, unable to detect movement beyond a few meters. Some began firing blindly, wasting ammunition. Others abandoned their vehicles immediately. That was the moment the Ukrainians struck. With suppressed weapons and thermal sights, they cleared vehicle by vehicle with ruthless efficiency. Those who resisted were fixed or flushed out with stun grenades. Those who surrendered were disarmed and escorted under guard. Some Russian soldiers fled south, chasing the cover of distant woods. By 2:30, the scale of the seizure was staggering. 20 main battle tanks, mostly T-72s and T-80, captured intact. Many still had rounds loaded, fuel tanks full, and comms equipment operational, as if crews had abandoned multi-million-dollar machines mid-mission. Ukrainian recovery teams and engineers moved in almost immediately. Under night cover, they began towing captured armor back to their own lines. Some of the best-conditioned tanks were even driven directly by Ukrainian soldiers trained on those same models earlier in the war. At forward depots, engineers and mechanics worked in tight, efficient teams. Each tank went through a quick inspection: engine performance, ammo storage, optics, or armor damage. The first task was always the same: erase Russian markings and paint fresh Ukrainian insignia. Then came comms upgrades, replacing or reprogramming radios to integrate with Ukrainian command networks. The best-conditioned tanks were earmarked for immediate redeployment. Within hours, some were already en route to active sectors, a turnaround so fast it blurred the line between war spoils and frontline assets. But the vehicles carried more than firepower. Intelligence teams found sensitive materials in compartments, encryption devices, detailed field maps, and radio frequency data still loaded in onboard systems. All were rushed to secure analysis centers, where signals experts began mining them for clues on Russian deployments, command protocols, and planned moves. In intelligence value, it was the kind of prize no satellite could buy. On the information front, Ukraine captured the narrative as effectively as it captured the armor. Images of seized Russian tanks, freshly repainted with Ukrainian flags, flooded social media and global outlets. The symbolism was undeniable. In effect, Russia had become one of Ukraine's largest tank suppliers. What might have been just another tactical battlefield win became a strategic PR triumph, bolstering Ukraine's image as resourceful, adaptable, and relentless. It was a message to the world, and an even stronger warning to Moscow. In less than 48 hours, Ukraine had seized 50 Russian main battle tanks, dismantling an entire armored push and flipping the momentum in the Donetsk region. What began as a potential Russian advance ended in total reversal. Ukraine gained not only valuable hardware, but also renewed battlefield leverage. Strategically, the loss was crippling for Moscow. An entire assault element wiped from the order of battle, forcing a rethink of operations across the sector. The reputational damage was just as severe. Images of abandoned, captured, and repainted tanks undermined years of military posturing. The lesson was clear. In modern war, speed, layered coordination, and real-time intelligence can neutralize heavy armored formations faster than any single miracle weapon. Ukraine's blend of UAV reconnaissance, special forces raids, and mechanized exploitation turned raw agility into decisive power.